Long story short, it was a bad time. Or AIs don't forget. Chapter 10. Bonus. Morgan. Morgan has the best big brother ever. She's glad he's the best because he kept her waiting a long time. Big brothers are supposed to come first. At least that's what Amelia says. When Morgan asks the other kids in her class, that's what they say too. It's baby brothers that come later, and then she'll get to be the big sister. But Daddy always said that Starks aren't like everybody else. Maybe that's why Petey is special, because he's definitely older than her, by a lot, but she didn't meet him until she was 4. Even then, she only got to see him twice, which wasn't enough. She'd spent years hearing how cool he was, but she didn't feel like talking much at Daddy's funeral, and when Petey came back to see Daddy after he woke up, he spent most of the time in Daddy's room, and Mommy said she should go and play because the adults were talking and it would be boring. Petey isn't an adult, but he is old, and Morgan knew better than to argue with Mommy. Daddy said that Petey would be back, that as soon as it was summer he'd spend a week with them at the lake, and she'd get to ask all her questions and play with him as much as she wanted. She had plans. Probably he could fit in her tent, and he could help her climb trees and show her his webs and be the princess so she can be the dragon slayer, 'cause Daddy said he wouldn't mind if she wanted to be the hero. Except summer came and went, and no Petey. Daddy looked sad every time she brought it up, until finally he asked her to stop. He even snapped a little, like she'd done something wrong, but he'd grabbed her before she hid in her room and gave her a big hug and whispered that he was sorry. He just missed Petey too, but things were complicated right now. She didn't like the word complicated. That's what Mommy said whenever Morgan asked her about Petey coming home. She didn't get sad like Daddy. She got annoyed. Exasperated, Daddy would say. "It's not a good time," Mommy said, over and over. It was never a good time, no matter how often Morgan asked, but she kept trying, because some day had to be good. At the beginning of December, she had a brilliant idea. "Can Petey come for Christmas, Mommy?" she asked as soon as she woke up, because Mommy always got more exacerbated after she went to work. "'Cause Christmas is the best time." Morgan was sure that was a winning argument, but Mommy looked at her funny, her eyebrows pulled together. "Petey? Who's that?" Morgan laughed. Daddy was the funny one, but apparently Mommy was trying to copy him today. "Petey, silly, my brother." But Mommy didn't laugh back. "You don't have a brother, sweetie." Morgan crossed her arms. "Yes, I do. My big brother Petey. I met him twice and I want him to come for Christmas. I've been waiting a long time." Mommy looked at her for a few seconds. "If you had a brother, wouldn't he live here with us all the time?" I know, it's so annoying, but Daddy says his Aunt May has dibs." "Aunt May?" "Uh-huh. But Daddy was going to steal Petey away for part of the summer, but he didn't, and now it's almost Christmas, and maybe May can visit too." "That's quite a story, Morgan. Did you make it up for school?" "You're the one making up a story. Why are you pretending not to know Petey? If he can't come, just say it's complicated." Morgan hid under her blankets until Mommy went to work and Daddy came to get her ready for school. "I want Petey to come for Christmas," she whined, clutching her stuffed Spidey to her chest. Daddy froze, and for a second she thought she was going to get her wish. But then he said, "Who's that, little miss?" And she threw Spidey at his face and stomped off to brush her teeth. She was at school that day listening to a bunch of her silly classmates whisper about Santa Claus that she figured it out. She knew Santa wasn't real, but Mommy said she wasn't supposed to say that around other kids. For some reason everyone needed to pretend so that the presents showed up under the tree. Petey was the opposite. He was real, but for some reason adults were pretending he wasn't. So maybe she just needed to play along until Christmas, and when he showed up under the tree, she would pretend to be surprised. It was all pretty silly, but adults were weird. She could wait just a few more weeks. Except Petey didn't come to Christmas. Mommy and Daddy didn't understand why she cried and stormed off to her room. She was so sure her brother would come for Christmas, and now she didn't know what to hope for next. Daddy was grumpy most of the time, and he seemed sad whenever he looked at her, and she didn't know what she had done wrong. It was months and months and months before she came home from school one day to find Daddy still in his pyjamas, nursing a nasty coffee. He patted the sofa next to him, and she sat down close, even though his drink smelled gross. "There's something really important I need to talk to you about, little miss. It might seem confusing, but I want you to know Mommy and I love you very much. 3,000, and nothing could ever change that." "Uh-oh," Morgan had said, which made Daddy smile before he took a big breath. "No uh-ohs necessary. This is not an uh-oh scenario." Morgan let him ramble. Sometimes when Daddy started talking, you just had to wait. "Long story short, you have a big brother." "Duh," she said, at the same time Daddy said, "He's asleep in the guest room." "Petey's here!" she squealed, leaping from the couch, but Daddy caught her and hauled her back. "Yes, Peter's here." "Finally!" Exactly." Daddy said a lot more stuff, most of it confusing, but Morgan barely listened, because Petey was here, finally, and they'd finally get to do all the things she'd planned. She had to be so patient, but it would all be worth it. And it is, mostly. Petey is tall and strong, and he gives great hugs, and he knows how to braid hair and paint nails, and he'll watch any movie she wants, even though he cried more than Daddy at Frozen 2, which is silly because that movie is funny. And he calls her Mo, which is her new favourite nickname, and Daddy seems happy that Petey is here, because they all sit all squished up together on the couch. Daddy touches Petey's hair a lot, and he even lets him into his lab, which Morgan isn't allowed into because she isn't old enough. Except Petey is sad, like most of the time, how Daddy had been sad. Except he doesn't get grumpy like Daddy. He gets quiet and makes himself as small as possible when he curls on the couch. It hurts sometimes to look at him, when he wipes at his eyes as if no one can see his tears. Morgan knows all about being sad. When Daddy was asleep, she was sad all the time, and it was the worst. Daddy was the best at cheering her up, and he had been the reason she was sad, and Mommy had silly rules like no juice pops in bed. Morgan wasn't really happy until he woke up. Maybe she can be the best at cheering Petey up. She sits in his lap so he won't be lonely and brings him juice pops so he won't be hungry, but that isn't enough. She wants to make him laugh, because laughing makes everything better. Normally Daddy makes her laugh. She thinks probably he should be the one doing this, but he's in a weird mood. Not as sad as Peter, but sadder than he should be. It's a good thing Peter is worth it, because being a little sister is a lot of work. One day she drags Petey out to the barn. "You need to meet Gerald," she says. Gerald makes everyone laugh. She isn't sure why. He's fluffy, but he's also kind of boring. "Who's Gerald?" Petey asks. "You'll see." It's a rainy day, so Gerald's in his stall. Petey walks up to the gate and his eyes go wide. "Whoa, you have a llama?" "Gerald's an alpaca." Daddy says that's a very important distinction, even though she doesn't know why, so she emphasises every syllable. "Why do you have an alpaca?" "I wanted a dog, but Mommy said that was too much responsibility, so Daddy found Gerald. He got out on his first night and ate the garden. Then Mommy said she wished we'd gotten a dog, but Daddy said no take-backsies." Petey's eyes are almost as wide as the ones on her Spidey plush. "That's so weird. Can I pet him? He looks so fluffy." "You can try, but Gerald doesn't like strangers. Don't be sad if he doesn't like you yet." Petey crouches down and sticks his hand through the bars. "Hey, buddy," he croons. Then he waits, staying so still that Morgan gets bored. But Gerald creeps forward, sniffing Petey's fingers. Petey giggles when his breath tickles, and Gerald hums like they're the best of friends, and Morgan knows this was a great idea. Eventually Petey reaches out and touches Gerald's neck. Gerald doesn't snort or run away. "He is fluffy," Petey says. His smile is so wide, Morgan can almost forget that he's usually so sad. "I feed him every day after school," she says. "You could help if you want." That night, when Daddy tucks her in, she asks him an important question. "How long is Petey staying?" Daddy drops down on the bed and tucks her covers a little tighter. Petey's staying forever, he says. Well, that's not strictly true. He'll go to college in the fall, become an adult, spread his wings, blah blah blah. But he's part of our family now. For always. Morgan claps her hands at the wonderful news. But what about his aunt? She asks. I thought she had dibs. How did you? Daddy asks, but then he shakes his head. His aunt's dead, sweetie. That's why he's so sad. Adults always act like death is forever, but Petey was gone and now he's back. Most people think her daddy is dead, but he was just sleeping and now he's fine. But it is sad when people are gone. She missed Daddy so much and she cried a lot, and so did Mommy. And if May was the one who tucked Petey in and made his breakfast and snuck him juice pops when he didn't finish his gross vegetables, no wonder he misses her. Yeah, Daddy frowns. That's mostly it. I'll cheer him up. He doesn't need to be sad now that he's here with us. Daddy smiles like she said the best thing and kisses her cheek. She giggles at his scratchy beard, like always, and he tickles her sides. We still love you, you know, even though Peter's here. Duh, she says. Duh, he repeats. Now get some sleep. Story first, please. She bats her eyes and Daddy caves. Well, since you're such an awesome little sister. The next time Petey looks sad, Morgan runs off to her room and comes back with her Spidey plushie. She squeezes it one last time and then pushes it into his hand. Spidey made me feel better when Daddy was sleeping, she says. He's so soft and his big eyes see everything. Maybe he'll help you feel better too. Petey looks at it for a few seconds. Then he starts to cry, but his tears are silent, like he hopes she won't notice. Oh, Mo, he sniffles. Thanks, but I can't take this. He's yours. But she crosses her arms so he can't give it back. You need him more than me. Besides, I know where you live. You can give him back when you feel better. Petey looks down at Spidey and traces his big, kind eyes. Deal. I'll try not to keep him too long. She shrugs. I can wait. Because of him, she's real good at waiting. It is kind of funny, she giggles. Spidey watching over Spidey. His knuckles get real white. He says, looking down at Spidey. Petey's eyes are nearly as wide, like he doesn't need a mask. I know it's a secret, she whispers. An important secret, but Daddy told me. Your dad told you what? Our dad, she corrects, told me you're Spider-Man. Oh, Petey says again. He scrubs a tear from his face. Yeah. That's so cool. You're my favourite superhero. You help little girls find their parents, and you save kitties from trees, and find lost dogs. And when you fight bad guys, you're so funny. How do you know all that, Mo? Daddy told me. He tells the best bedtime stories about Petey and Spidey. He says again, though she doesn't know what part of this was hard to understand. He told you all of this in the past few weeks. No, Daddy always tells me about Petey and Spidey for years and years and years. Petey looks between Morgan and Spidey. She's had Spidey a long time, so part of the red is faded a little, and there's a big purple spot from where her marker exploded, and a couple of threads on his foot are loose and ragged. But that's... I can show you, she shouts. She grabs Petey's hand and drags him out of the house, through the yard and towards the edge of the lake to her favourite tent. She looks at it carefully before she drops his hand. Daddy says he's too big and too old, but I think you can fit. You're not that old yet. Follow me. She crawls inside and then rolls on her back right against the wall, so Petey has enough room. He follows her and she pokes him in the side. Look up, she commands. Yes, ma'am, he says, and then a moment later, whoa. Morgan looks up herself and smiles at all her favourite artwork. She was practically a baby when she first made the drawings, and they're all wrong. Petey's too short, not much bigger than her, and his hair is a dark brown scribble, and his hands are way too big. They got better after she met Petey in person. She learned which brown crayon to use, and how his hair is shorter but curly. The ones from the last 2 weeks are the best, because she got the brown eyes right instead of imagining they were blue. She's still not sure she got Spidey's suit right. She knows Daddy gave him a couple. Maybe now that Petey knows she knows, he can show her. When did you make all these? After Daddy told me stories, I'd draw them so I wouldn't forget. But you were supposed to forget. That's silly, and she tells him so. Not you too, I don't wanna. She tells him everything, about Mommy and Daddy pretending they didn't know him, how she asked and then stopped asking, and how she missed her favourite stories, but she missed Petey more. Are you sure you didn't forget for a while, and remember when I came to stay? Nuh-uh, I never forgot you. You were supposed to come to Christmas and you didn't, and I was so mad, but I drew you with my new sparkle crayons before I accidentally melted them. She stands up and grabs 2 of her drawings. In one of them, Petey is sitting on the table with them, right across from the Christmas turkey, though his eyes are a pretty, sparkling blue. In the other one, Spidey is at the top of the Christmas tree instead of a star, looking down at 2 big piles of presents, one for Morgan and the other for Petey. She pushes the drawings into his hands. He traces each line like the masterpieces they are. These? How could you? I don't understand. Adults are silly, she tells him. Even Mommy and Daddy, but I always wanted you to come home. Peter makes some excuse to get himself out of Morgan's tent as fast as he can, still clutching her drawings and her Spider-Man plush. His heart is beating so wildly he can hear it in his ears. He doesn't know how to describe how he's feeling. Can he have an emotional overload instead of a sensory one? He is boggled, flabbergasted, astonished, loved, adored. Morgan Stark looked at him with flat-out hero worship, and even though she knew about Spider-Man, she hadn't been talking about Spider-Man. I always wanted you to come home. Excuse me, what? He's shaking by the time he makes it to Mr. Stark's garage, full out trembling even though nothing's hurt, nothing's wrong. Mr. Stark drops the wrench he'd been holding. Peter feels like he's stepped into the Twilight Zone, because the project Tony is working on is a lawnmower. Hey, whoa, you alright, Underoos? Tell me what hurts and we'll fix it. Peter laughs, and it sounds hysterical. He doesn't even know what's supposed to be funny. He holds out the drawings, and they shake in his grasp like the leaves on the trees outside. So many leaves, always rustling, so loud. Who knew every tree had so many leaves? You told Morgan about me, and Spider-Man. She drew me like dozens of times and taped them all to her tent like some kind of murder board. Okay. Tony creeps towards him like Peter might spook. Peter's no wild animal, but he thinks Tony might be right. Tony's flesh hand lands solidly on Peter's shoulder, while his metal one takes the drawings and eases them out of Peter's grip. I must say the resemblance is uncanny. Right little Picasso I've got. Emphasis on the abstract. Peter takes a deep breath. His chest isn't tight. It's warm. Why did she draw me so much? She said you told her stories. Yeah, maybe let's sit. You look like you're gonna fall over. Do you need something? Are you hungry? Is it your blood sugar? Tony leads him over to a workbench, and Peter's knees drop out from under him. Tony reaches into a nearby drawer and pulls out a granola bar. Double chocolate chip, Peter's favourite. Friday used to complain that Tony never ate enough when he disappeared into his lab, but after Peter had been there a few times, there always seemed to be an endless supply of snacks. I'm not hungry, Peter mumbles, but he opens the bar anyway. Takes a bite and realises it does make him feel a little better. What did you tell Morgan? Tony leans back against the lawnmower. It's red and gold like the Iron Man armour, a bit souped up maybe, but Tony Stark's latest invention's primary purpose is to cut grass. Only the good stuff, I promise. Peter Parker's greatest hits, with a little bit of Spider-Man thrown in there for good measure. Surely Spider-Man would make a much better story. At least the pre-Thanos Spider-Man, who never broke the multiverse and got his relative killed. Why? Tony breathes hard, and Peter can hear it rattling in his lungs. His fingers tap against the mower, softly enough most people wouldn't notice, but Peter hears. Being a parent is exhausting. No one tells you that. I mean, it's all the books, but you think, I've been tortured by terrorists and I've chosen not to sleep for most of my life. This will be fine. And then it's not. Morgan was 2 or 3 or something, asking for story, and I just could not walk across her room to her bookcase. So I told her about the time we ordered every single pizza on the menu, and you ate them all in 17 minutes. Peter will always remember that day. He'd never been more nauseous, or triumphant, but it doesn't track. You told Morgan about my marathon pizza vomiting because you were too tired to cross a room? You make it sound so tawdry. Peter scoffs because he's always idolised Mr. Stark, but he's not dumb. There's plenty in Mr. Stark's history far tawdrier than this. Tony scrubs a hand across his face. Truth is, after the snap, well, everything was a shit show. I wasn't coping well when I got back from space. Kept having nightmares about you dying in my arms. And almost everyone who knew you was gone too. If Ted was around, we would have become best friends, let me tell you. But it was just me and Happy. So once a week we'd get shit-faced and tell our favourite Peter Parker stories. Something wrenches in Peter. He'd never meant to cause so much misery. He knows how much it sucks getting left behind. But since May and Ned blipped too, he had figured that no one had missed him that much. That doesn't sound healthy. Pepper put a stop to it once she found out she was pregnant. We tried once without the alcohol, but... Tony pulls a face. Turns into a real sob fest. I've known Happy a long time, but we're not there yet. Peter wraps his arms around himself. I'm sorry. Hey, none of that. You don't get to apologise that I care about you, okay? When Peter stays silent, Tony glares. Okay, he repeats. Okay, Peter echoes, but he doesn't like it. Point is, I hated that there were so few people left to miss you, so Pepper said I could tell her stories, and I did, every night, all through the pregnancy, the good and the bad. I kept you alive the only way I could. So when Morgan asked for a story, it was the most natural thing in the world to tell her one about you. Then she asked the next night, and the next. Soon we didn't need books anymore. Peter closes his eyes and feels the tears burn down his face. He hates the thought of Tony in so much pain. He didn't deserve that. Not when he finally had a family. Can you look at me a sec, Pete? Please. Peter shakes his head, but Tony has done so much for him, so he opens his eyes. Morgan loved hearing about her big brother. She started throwing tantrums whenever Pep tried to read her a real book. You were always part of this family, even when you weren't here. Peter glances back at the drawings Tony's left on the workbench. Morgan drew me this Christmas, he says. None of these pieces really fit together, but this one's from a whole different puzzle. Seems so. Clearly she thinks I do an excellent job stabilising the tree, because from a physics perspective I think we might have a bit of a situation with a Spidey star, creative as it may be. Peter groans. You don't get it. Morgan shouldn't have remembered me this Christmas. Tony blinks, long and slow, and leans a little harder against the lawnmower. Well, shit. Exactly. Peter looks at the drawings again. She says she never forgot, but she's 6. Maybe she drew this last Christmas? Tony snatches up the Christmas dinner drawing. Nah, see all this glitter? She got those crayons for the Christmas, and they went off to the great art box in the sky after the Valentine's crayon explosion fiasco. But how could she remember me this Christmas? No one remembered me. Tony rests his hand on Peter's shoulder, which makes Peter realise that he's shaking again. Morgan called you Petey, and the name stuck. I never mentioned your last name, I don't think. Maybe the spell wasn't nuanced enough to realise that Petey and Peter Parker were one and the same. So she never forgot me, he whispers. All this time this precious girl was missing him and wanting him to come home, and they'd only met twice. He's had his mind blown a lot of times. Strange life he lives, but this is pretty crazy. Seems not. Tony seems a bit shaken by the news himself. You know, Madame Secretary had an epic meltdown on Christmas Day. shrieked something about he's not coming, and stormed off to her room, barricaded the door. Pep got mad at me for not going after her, but I was throwing a bit of a tantrum myself. The hand on his shoulder tightens, but Peter doesn't shake it off. It grounds him, even as Tony seems a bit lost in the past. I knew something was missing. Christ, that damn spell. Morgan must have said things to me about you. She was missing you, and I was missing someone, and I couldn't put the pieces together. If I had paid more attention, I could have looked for you. You should have been there with us. Peter sniffles, remembering the frigid day spent collapsed by May's grave, too worn out to cry. He'd had a lot of awful days, but Christmas was one of the worst. I wish it was. Next year, Tony says, squeezing his shoulder, but then loosening his grip. We'll go all out. Tree as big as the one in the Rockefeller Centre, and you'll bet I'm making you climb to the top of it. Morgan's got the right idea. We can do an Iron Man Spider-Man Christmas card, but she drew the present mountains too small. Just you wait. Peter feels like he should argue. None of that's for him. Christmas is some ratty garland, 3 small presents, and Chinese takeout while they watch It's a Wonderful Life. But seeing himself in Morgan's drawings, he's starting to picture it for real. Chaotic and so very extra. He wouldn't mind being in the middle of all that if the Starks really wanted him there. If it's not too much trouble. Peter. Tony almost never calls him by his actual name. It sets him on edge. So does the way Tony's face looks so sincere, open in a way no photographer has ever captured. It's no trouble having you here. I need you to get that thought through your genius head, okay? After all those years of telling stories about you, I started dreaming about what it would be like for you and Morgan to grow up together. I'd wake up and bawl like a baby when I realised you were still gone. Having you here now, I can't even describe how happy I am. Of course, I wish this last year had gone down differently, and I had to bribe May to steal you away for the summer. But I am so fucking glad that you're here with me. I spent 5 years wishing for my son to come home, and now here you are. It's a goddamn miracle. You're a miracle. And Peter's heart grows several sizes, just like the Grinch. He doesn't understand how he went from some kid Tony Stark found potentially useful to Tony Stark's kid. Just as precious as his actual daughter, who he clearly adores. Peter doesn't know how he possibly earned 5 years of grief-fueled devotion, but he can't deny it, because it's even harder to believe that Tony Stark is saying all of this than to accept that he means it. There's not a possible reason in the whole multiverse for Tony to be making this up. Tony's always been shit with emotions, and that's fine. Emotions are messy and hard, and why would Tony Stark want to bare his soul to some twerpy teen anyway? Except he just has. Tony has claimed him, just like Ben and May had, except there's not even a blood tie, no moral or legal reason for him to care about some pathetic unlucky orphan, not when he's got a perfect daughter of his own, who's never let anyone down. But Tony wants him here. Tony and Morgan both want him here. And Peter needs to stay, because their love is the only thing keeping him afloat. Suddenly, all he can think of is his most recent session with Sam, when Sam suggested Peter tell Tony about the dark thoughts, and Peter adamantly refused. Any time Peter's in danger, it makes Mr. Stark crazy. That was true even when they barely knew each other. Nearly every dicey moment in their relationship has stemmed from Mr. Stark thinking Peter is reckless. If Peter tells Tony what he's been thinking of doing, Tony will lose his mind, and Peter doesn't want to put him through that. Tony doesn't deserve it, when he's been so patient and accommodating and kind. And Peter's not sure he can handle his reaction. It'll be all anger at first, yelling, scolding, revoking privileges, all of which Peter clearly deserves, but he doesn't feel strong enough to face anymore. But once the anger simmers down, what comes after will be worse. Disappointment. Mr. Stark had given Peter so much, and Peter was about to throw it all away. And once he understands that this blissful little charade, this pretend happy family, is going to shatter into a million pieces, he'll tell Peter to get out, and Peter doesn't have anywhere to go. Maybe he'll let him stay, out of pity, but it'll be different. He'll see Peter like the pathetic thing he is, a broken quitter, not strong or good or grateful enough. That's what Peter thought yesterday, anyway. But now he thinks of everything Tony's just said. I spent 5 years wishing for my son to come home, and now here you are. Tony won't abandon him. He couldn't possibly. You're a miracle. And Peter doesn't want to hold in this darkness anymore, where it's been festering through every bright moment of these past few weeks. He has to let it out now, before he loses his nerve, even though the timing is bad. Tony had said so many nice things, and Peter is going to respond with something terrible. Sometimes I think about filling my pockets with stones and walking into the lake, he blurts. He doesn't let himself process the look on Tony's face. He just flounders on. Back in Queens, I would wonder what would happen if I didn't refill my web shooters, how high I'd need to be from to be sure. Once I thought about how many pills I'd have to take, if I had enough money to buy that many. I didn't. Peter wants to throw up. His stomach churns, but he makes himself look at Tony. He can hear his racing heart, but his breathing is so slow, it's like he's holding his breath. His jaw is clenched, but his eyes are blown wide. Peter's breath hitches, and that seems to bring Tony back to himself. Okay, he says. His voice warbles. Okay, shit. Okay. It's not okay. He's broken Tony. His first instinct is to back into the wall so he can climb up on the ceiling and hide. He's not sure Tony's even looking at him, really. He might get away with it. But he doesn't. He can't move. He owes Tony a further explanation. Surely he'll have questions. He really thought Tony would be okay. That somehow, even though Peter is a pathetic fuck-up, that Tony would understand. Or would forgive him at least. When I was 22, I was at some party staring at a line of coke, and I thought, what if it's laced with something? Soon every night was another line, another what if, until I'd started going from wondering to wishing. I'd snort up and hope that it was the last thing I ever did. Truth lingers in the air between them, and now Peter thinks he's the one that isn't breathing. God, Peter, I wish to everything holy that you didn't understand that feeling, because I could never think of any less of you because you do. Then Tony's lurching forward and Peter is falling, and they meet somewhere in the middle. Tony's hands are everywhere Peter needs them to be, holding him, cradling him, trying to rub the tension out of his body. And Peter hates that Tony knows how Peter felt. Tony's party years always seemed so scandalous, and Peter had always preferred to pretend he was having fun. A lot of fun. Even though he suspected there was more to the story. But Tony knows now. Tony understands. And Tony isn't pushing him away. How are you taking this so well? Peter sputters. Aren't you worried? I'm fucking terrified. Tony squeezes him a little tighter. But that's my deal, not yours. I'm so proud of you for telling me, champ. So proud. You can tell me anything. It's my job to handle it, even if I don't like it. I hate that you're hurting like this, but I'm so proud that you told me. Thank you. Thank you. I will drain every drop of that lake. Tonight. Fill it with stones. Pave over it. How about a tennis court? You know how to play tennis? You don't have to fill the lake. Morgan loves the lake. She loves you more, Peter. She loves you so much it's stronger than magic. She'll get over it. Peter forces himself back out of Tony's arms, even though he just wants to stay there. He feels like Tony needs to see his face as he says the next bit. You don't have to fill the lake. I'm not going to walk out in it. I promise. I don't want to. I never wanted to. Even in New York. Well, maybe the pills. It was a bad night. And the web thing. Just once, but I don't want everything to end, not anymore. I want to stay here with you and Morgan. Sometimes I wake up and the thought is there. What if? Not do it, just what if I did? He clears his throat. There's snot everywhere and his eyes hurt from all the tears, and he doesn't know what to make of the look Tony's giving him. Tony might have said Peter's supposed to tell him stuff, but he looks like he's been hit by his own repulsor blast. I don't want to think this way, but I don't know how to stop it. What if I'm broken? Maybe you are. Peter sobs, the sound wrenching out of his deflated heart. He didn't expect Mr. Stark to agree so readily. "Hey, Bambino, look at me." Then Tony's hands are framing his face, cold metal and warm flesh, but it's his eyes that really hold him. Iron Man's eyes, absolutely blazing. Even Thanos couldn't best those eyes. "Stuff breaks. Bones, hearts, people. It doesn't have to stay that way. You heal better than anyone I've ever met, and I'm damn good at fixing things. Between the two of us, we'll put you back together, no matter how long it takes. I promise, kiddo. I swear." "Okay." Peter breathes and finds his lung capacity has damn near doubled. He hadn't even realised how much he'd been impaired. His chest is lighter. There isn't so much weight pressing down on his shoulders. He's still teetering on the edge of a panic attack, but there's relief on the other side, addictingly sweet. "Sometimes we can't help the thoughts we have, and that's okay, as long as they're just stray thoughts. But if they get stronger than what-ifs, if you start having more of them, you need to tell someone. Me, Pepper, Wilson, anyone, you hear me?" Peter nods. He's already done that. Sam knows, and he got Peter to tell Tony. Peter already feels better with the truth out in the open. If it gets worse, he'll definitely tell. "Good." Tony takes a few breaths, deep and deliberate. "Because I'm going to say something selfish here that Captain Therapy probably wouldn't approve of. I know bad things can happen inside the suit, outside the suit. The world can be dangerous even if you aren't a hero. I've already lost you once. Twice if you count this memory wipe clusterfuck. If something happens to you, I'll get through it for Morgan and Pepper's sake. But if you take your own life, Pete, I will never recover." Peter flinches because even in his darkest moments, he's never thought it so blatantly. He recoils at the notion. Maybe in his darkest moments, after May's funeral, when all he had was pain, hunger, pain, cold, hunger, pain, grief, 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 guilt. But now he doesn't want to die. Now he wants to live. "I wouldn't," he promises. "I won't. If there was anything you need to be okay, I will get it for you. I can't bring May back, and I can't erase all those months you spent alone. And I know that's probably where most of the pain comes from. I would give anything to take that away from you. But if there's anything else, I don't care what it costs. I don't care how long it takes. I'll break physics for you if I have to. I've done it before." "I won't, I promise. I don't want to die. I didn't really then. Everything just hurt so much. I was so alone." Then Tony pulls him back into his arms. "You're not alone anymore, Pete. You'll never be alone like that again. I promise. You've got me, no matter what. Pepper loves you already, even though she's only known you 3 weeks. And Morgan, she loves you so much she just flat out ignored Grindelwald's spell, which is the most brilliant thing she's ever done. And Happy texts me 10 times a day to check how you are. You'd never know it, but he's a right mother hen. And those friends of yours, soon as you're ready, we're going to get them back too. This was the low point, but it's all up from here. I promise. You're going to be okay. You just have to hang on a little bit longer." And Peter knows this. He believes it. Because Tony holds him like he's built a shield of armour between Peter and the world, even as his words devolve into adoring, incomprehensible Italian. Peter's pain is still there, rooted deep in his being, but it wilts under the blasts of Tony's love. "Thank you," Peter whispers. It's all he can manage. "Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you." "Thank you for coming back to me," Tony says. He sounds beyond relieved, reverent. "Thank you for holding on. You're so strong, so good. But it's okay to rest now. You're safe. Let us take care of you for a while, Bambino." "Okay." Peter can do that. He can let Tony be in charge for a while. It is so damn nice to have someone take care of him again. To not have to worry about food and rent and heat and food and money and crime. They keep holding each other until their hearts settle and sink. The pain is still there, but the doubt is gone. If Peter walked into the lake now, he thinks he would float. Petey and Daddy stay in the lab until dinner. When they come out, they both have red eyes, and Petey leans on Daddy like he's too tired to walk on his own. Mommy asks if everything is all right. They both look at each other and nod. There's a star shower tonight, Morgan reminds them as she demolishes her mac and cheese. Can we watch it, Daddy? Daddy doesn't agree right away, so she sticks out her lip. We missed the last one because you were sleeping. I see what you're doing, little miss. Daddy sounds tired, but he chuckles. Then he looks at Petey. You ever seen a meteor shower? No. There's too much light pollution in the city. They are something. I understand if you're not up for it tonight, but you're welcome to join us. You have to join us, Morgan says. They're so pretty, and you get to make a wish, and there's hot chocolate and s'mores. Hot chocolate and s'mores, Petey echoes as he finishes his third helping of mac and cheese. When he smiles, he looks more like that boy in her drawings. How can I say no to that? Mommy makes her go to bed right after dinner, since she'll be up all night gallivanting with the boys. She's sure she'll be too excited to sleep, but she blinks up at Daddy when he comes to fetch her at midnight. She's worn her favourite footy pyjamas, so all she has to do is slip on some sneakers and a jacket. Petey is waiting in the living room, wearing one of Daddy's raggedy MIT hoodies. His hair's kinda messy, like he got some sleep too, even though Daddy said he was old enough to stay up if he wanted. Daddy grabs a blanket from the couch and drapes it over Petey's shoulder. It's a bit cold out there, kiddo. Then he hands Petey and Morgan each their travel mug of hot chocolate and ushers them outside. Morgan shows Petey which log to sit on as Daddy starts the fire. Petey takes a sip of hot chocolate and then looks up. It's so clear, he says. There's so many stars. Those are just boring stars. The shower hasn't started yet. Hey, little miss, don't be rude to your brother. Sorry, Petey, she says. It's okay. You can't see the stars in New York, even the boring ones. I only really saw them once. When you and Daddy went in space? Morgan guesses. Petey and Daddy both freeze, as if they didn't know she was that smart. Yeah, he says softly. One day I want to go to space, she says. But I'm going to make sure we have enough fuel to get back. Daddy makes a noise that sounds a little like he's choking. Good plan. Morgan isn't sure what's so great about living in the city. Petey hasn't seen stars and he's never had a s'more, but she shows him how to make them, instructing him to keep his marshmallow in the fire until it's just right, and then building it like a sandwich, with extra chocolate, because that's how to make them the best. They're on to their third s'more when a sharp noise cuts through the night. Peter leaps to his feet and steps in front of Morgan. What is that? He shrieks. It's just a coyote, she giggles, at the same time Daddy says, Stand down, Spidey. You have coyotes here? How close is it? It sounds close. Do you have your repulsor on you? No, I did not bring my repulsor to our star shower party. I'm not supposed to use it to shoot at wildlife. Mrs. Boss's orders. Coyotes are afraid of Gerald, Morgan tells him. Petey looks at Daddy. Is that true? That seems like a lie. We're safe out here, I promise. I didn't defeat Thanos to let my kids get eaten by a coyote. We're sitting ducks out here. I could have brought my web shooters. How many are there? I could probably take down one, but not like a dozen. You are not wrestling any coyotes, city boy. Morgan giggles at the image. Coyotes are just like dogs, but meaner, and no one's allowed to pet them or even go near. They'd be no match for Spidey, though. I thought you were a city boy. Now you're some hermit living in the middle of nowhere, right in the heart of coyote territory. Most of the US is coyote territory now. They made great strides during the blip. Why doesn't this worry you? Look! Morgan jumps to her feet as she sees the first star streak across the sky. Daddy and Petey stop arguing, and Petey drops back down onto the log with a soft whoa. But he hasn't seen anything yet. Soon they're everywhere. The fire and the s'mores are forgotten. This is normally the time she crawls into Daddy's lap. But her eyes flick from Daddy to Petey. It seems like Petey needs cuddles more, and Daddy had been worried about him getting cold. She can help keep him toasty. She walks towards Petey. He knows what she wants before she asks and opens his arms. She scampers into his lap and he pulls the blanket around her so they're cosy like a burrito. She leans back against him and he drops his chin on the top of her head with a quiet hum. She watches a few stars before she peeks at Daddy. Sometimes he gets grouchy when she goes to Mommy first. But he's watching her with a big smile, so big she can see all his teeth, and she knows she made the right choice. "Make a wish," she tells Petey, reaching under the blanket to poke him on the shoulder. "Pick a good one, 'cause it always comes true." "That's so?" he asks. "Uh-huh. My first star shower I wished for you to come home, and it took a long time, but here you are." She tilts her head up so she can see his face. "Worth it. And next time Daddy was sleeping and Mommy wouldn't let me watch outside, but Friday woke me up and I looked out of my window and wished for Daddy to wake up." She turns and looks at Daddy. He's got a weird look on his face now, but he doesn't seem grumpy. "That didn't take as long, but I still had to wait a while." "Maybe the next wish won't take so long," Petey says. "Hope not." "So, what are you wishing for tonight, Morgana?" Daddy asks. She looks up at Petey again. She knew as soon as her teacher told her about the star shower what her wish would be. "I wish that Petey wouldn't be sad anymore," she says. "'Cause even though his auntie is gone, he has me and Daddy and Mommy. We'll take good care of him. We're funny people. He should laugh lots." "Oh, Mo, you shouldn't have to use your wish on me." Petey's voice sounds a little funny. She hopes he doesn't cry. That's the opposite of what she wants. "But it's what I want most." He presses a kiss to the top of her head and holds her a little tighter. "You're a real good sister, Mo." "I know." Daddy snorts at that and wipes his cheek. "You need to look at the stars, Daddy, so you can make your wish." But Daddy just keeps looking at her and Petey, with a smile so wide she forgets all the months he was asleep, all the years Petey was away. Long as Daddy can smile like that, she'll never be sad again. "I already have everything I need." Thanks for listening. I really hope you enjoyed. Have a lovely rest of your day and take care of yourselves.